While powerful factions fight for the Mojave, a new power rises from the south, a tribe of survivors who call themselves the Free Fighters. I'm JarvisTheFirst, and today I want to take you on a journey to discover the fractured tribes that live in the post-nuclear landscape of Mexico. After the bombs fell, Mexico's central government collapsed. Now, there are dozens of different factions that rule the Mexican wasteland. And of those factions, the Free Fighters have taken the mantle to rebuild the country. A veteran ghoul by the name of Pedro Gomez was the first commander to lead the Free Fighters. Gomez had proved himself worthy in the Battle of Los Mochis. His leadership rallied the militia, and he was favored by the people. His first operation was to take Tierra City and ultimately annex the nation of Gente del Sol. Right away, they began making preparations for war. War demands firearms. To obtain firearms, they had to scavenge the wasteland for weapons. So they dispatched 50 scouts to scavenge for pipe guns and ammunition. The plan was simple. Commander Gomez envisioned an easy victory. All they had to do was cross the river. He expected resistance at first, but assumed after the initial road bump, the rest of the nation would capitulate within days. So, he drew battle plans. He split his army into 3 groups. Each group had a specific mission to conduct. The main division were to hold their center position and wait for the support platoons to cross the river in rowboats and canoes. Both platoons would cross at the opposite ends of the river. Once across, they would station themselves on high ground. It was likely that enemy troops would have set up defenses to mirror the main force. The support platoons hiding in the hills would open fire and decimate the enemy. Classic bait and switch. Each division was made up of 180 fighters, most of which were young men and women thirsty for glory. They were split into 6 infantry platoons, each armed with rudimentary pipe guns. There was also 1 machine gun platoon for extra firepower and 1 explosive platoon to break through enemy bunkers. And of course, this wouldn't be Fallout without the use of the most reliable explosive, the dynamite. Preparations were complete. It was time to declare war. Unfortunately, someone in the Free Fighters was a defector. A spy. Someone leaked intel informing the enemy of their plan. The enemies entrenched their forces all along the river. Commander Gomez couldn't execute his battle plans without suffering heavy casualties. So the operation to cross the river came to a grinding halt. Both sides bombarded one another with pot shots and makeshift artillery. Occasionally, a few platoons would attempt to cross the river, but every time they would be beaten back. Over and over, troops on both sides clashed, but none could fully gain a foothold. Finally, Gomez had another plan. This one was much more unconventional. Over 2,000 soldiers were transported across the sea by war canoes. They landed in Puerto Libertad and defeated the local militia with minimal losses. Occupying the port and the city so far behind enemy front lines was the final blow. The enemy attempted to muster a militia force to retake the city, but they couldn't hold their ground. The inexperienced recruits were sorely outmatched. They were losing at every turn. Once news of their defeats spread, it seemed that the morale of their entire army began to waver. Free Fighters pushed across the river and routed the enemies. This war was already over. Commander Gomez was just picking up the crumbs at this point. Each day, the 2 armies pushed further and further. They were practically running down desperate troops now. It was brutal and barbaric. Such is the way of life in the wasteland. Their enemies finally surrendered. The Gente del Sol were annexed and absorbed into the Free Fighters. Without wasting any time, Commander Gomez conducted a surprise invasion into the Sinaloa cartel. Platoons of infantry divisions clashed against the loose gangs of the cartel. The fighting was fierce, but the Free Fighters pressed on. Soon, a weakness in the cartel's front line became apparent, and Gomez seized the opportunity to break through their ranks. 24 battles later, the Sinaloa cartel warlords found themselves on the run. Free Fighters encircled the remainder of the Raider faction and slaughtered them. The warlords will terrorize the people of Mexico no more. Their final holdout at Durango was razed to ashes. Immediately following their victory, the Free Fighters charged headlong into the cartel warlords directly north of them. Commander Gomez took them by complete surprise and encircled them just like their friends in the Sinaloa cartel. Hundreds of Mexican soldiers swarmed into the unprotected cartel territory. The fighting was quick and decisive. the raiders stood no chance. Soon, only several divisions of ghouls remained. They fought to the last. Any survivors were executed. The Free Fighters began as a small, insignificant nation. Now they had risen to become one of the powerhouses in Mexico. Only one thing was left to do: conquer the rest of Mexico.
A few moments later.
They had conquered all of Mexico with the help of allies along the Rio Grande River. This was not the end though. One final prize remained: New Vegas, the crown jewel of the wasteland. But this would prove to be the hardest battle yet. They had never fought against Mr. House's Securitrons yet. In doing so would be an uphill battle. Commander Gomez knew he had to outfit their divisions with updated anti-armor weapons. Hundreds of Free Fighters fortified the border. Across from them, hundreds of Securitrons dug themselves in for all-out war. Each division was armed with 25 mandatory anti-tank guns. This decision would be the deciding factor in the coming total war. Before anyone could prepare, they declared war on Mr. House. The Securitrons blasted through the soft infantry divisions. In addition, Securitron divisions landed on the coast of Puerto Libertad. Free Fighters scrambled to form a front line against the naval invasion. It was complete chaos, but a miracle occurred. Somehow Gomez discovered a better way to penetrate Securitron armor with anti-tank weapons. This tipped the battle slightly in Gomez's favor. With their newfound knowledge, infantry divisions began pushing Securitrons back. Coupled that with the fact that they had recently conscripted thousands of super mutants, the Securitrons were losing the war. Mr. House had the firepower, but Mexico had the manpower. There was only so much Securitrons that could be made at once. Mexico had over 30,000 fresh conscripts to draw from. The NCR was an ally of New Vegas, so naturally, they invaded Mexican soil. It was not long until Mexico pushed New Vegas all the way north towards Hoover Dam. They were fast approaching the shining city of the Mojave. There was nothing California could do to stop the Free Fighters. Back on Mexican soil, thousands of NCR troops found themselves isolated from any friendly territory. From this point onward, the NCR and New Vegas were only fighting to save what little they could get their hands on. The bulk of their armies were demolished and their manpower depleted. Alright guys, that's how Mexico conquered New Vegas in this old world blues simulation. If you enjoyed the video, stick around for the next one and subscribe for loads of stories and games. See you all next time.